Yes, love the lights. I can't see you, so I don't know if you're there, which makes me feel very confident because I'm good at talking to myself. I do want to give honor and thank Pastor Josh and Keisha for allowing me to be here, and also Mandy and Vera and whoever else is responsible for me having a microphone today. They might not be so excited about that after I'm done. I'm just picking. But I'm very honored because as a pastor, I know the level of trust that it takes to hand someone a microphone and speak to your people. And so I'm just grateful that you came and that they trusted me as well as you, and you trust me because of your trust in him. And if you decide to come to my breakout sessions, I learned last night that mine will be ghetto. I don't have slides. I don't have handouts. So you can come to my ghetto breakout, and we are going to have fun, okay? I'm also grateful to have my personal cheerleader. As Keisha said, he's been my cheerleader for over 32 years, and he has supported me both literally and figuratively. I save him money all the time. As you know, my name is Paula. My middle name is Christine, and if you do look up the names, Paula means little, and Christine means Christian. So my name means little Christian. So I don't have a whole lot to live up to, but it does take a lot of work to live up to being a little Christian. So I'm not here because of my spirituality. That's Mandy and Risha that's going to talk. In fact, I only have 2 spiritual gifts. And the first one is shopping, and that's how I knew that I was at the right place, because I got to shop before the conference even started. Do I have any other spiritual shopping gift women out there? It is a gift. My other spiritual gift is nagging. I didn't know that was a gift till my husband let me know. But my message today, I don't know if they have it on the screen, is plot twist, and I will refer to that. That's the only ghetto slide I have, okay? But I actually wrote most of this, or a lot of this sermon before, and I named it Plot Twist because I really enjoy reading books or watching movies that have a cool ending, or, the ending is not what you thought it would be. I think that should be the theme of 2020. Like, I could probably give an altar call now. This year has been so crazy, not just with the things that affected all of us, but even just 3 weeks ago after Hurricane Laura hit, and it hit, our area was very affected, but the worst damage was, of course, in Lake Charles, Beaumont area. But my house, we evacuated for 24 hours and came right back home because my house did have electricity, but my daughters didn't, so they all were staying with us, and of course the grandbaby, I hated that. But so they all moved in with us. We came back on a Friday, and so they're all at our house. And by Saturday night, my youngest daughter, who is a nurse, was vomiting, running a high fever. We didn't know what was wrong. And by Sunday night, she was showing signs of dehydration. And she is a nurse, so she was diagnosing herself. And so Monday morning, her husband took her to the hospital, to the doctor, and it confirmed the dehydration. So her husband's a paramedic, and our doctor the hospitals were full because the Lake Charles hospitals had evacuated to our hospital. And so our doctor hands her husband 2 bags of IV to do at home. And so I come into my house, my daughter's in the recliner, there's IV bag hanging from the lamp, and it was just so 2020, I never took a picture. I have no record of that, of her laying there for 2 days with an IV bag. And then the Wednesday was her birthday. And so my oldest daughter and I ran to Lafayette to pick up a cake and a few things for her birthday. And she texted us, y'all pray for Jacob, her husband. She said he's vomiting. He's saying he has severe stomach cramps. So we get back in the car and we call her to check on him, and she goes, Mom, he's going to be okay. We're waiting on the ambulance to come pick him up. And I'm like, what? And so anyway, the thing was the hospital was full and he's a paramedic. So his company brought him by ambulance to the hospital so he could bypass ER. But it's just a 2020 story. We just add that to our list. So plot twist, those have happened my entire life. On April 3rd of 1963, I was born a Siamese or conjoined twin. My twin was born dead, and both my mom and I were in critical condition. My twin had apparently died between that first and second trimester, so for the rest of the pregnancy, and I was full term, that baby was poisoning our system. And I was born in kinder at a clinic. I think it could have been a vet thing on the other side. I'm not sure, but I do know they were so unprepared for my kind of birth. And the hospital staff was limited, so they had to make a decision on who to save. And because I had a sister 18 months old, the doctor decided that he would save my mom. So they just put me to the side and began stabilizing her. During that process, a nurse came over to check my vitals, and she reported back to the doctor that she couldn't find a pulse, she couldn't find a heartbeat. So the doctor knew that he had made the right decision. And when my mom was stable, the doctor came over to do a death certificate, but there was a plot twist because apparently God knows CPR. And I was alive and breathing, and I am the first Siamese twin joined at the mouth and neck to survive in medical history. And if that makes me a celebrity, I do autographs. But within a few hours, I was on my way to New Orleans where specialists waited for me. And after the team of doctors examined me and consulted with each other, they came up with a game plan to disassemble me and put me back together. So I am the $6 million woman. And that kind of dates me because that was a show, man. But anyway. But while removing the deceased baby from me, the doctors discovered that our tongues were somewhat attached. So they sewed the two tongues together to make me one. And as you know, the tongue is a muscle, and according to the scriptures, the hardest member of the body to contain or whatever, to control. So my tongue is two of those. So I have to watch what I say twice as much as the average person. And then to add insult to injury, I got her salivary glands also. So the doctors informed my parents that because of the complications of two tongues sewed together, I would probably never be able to talk. And I just add that I would definitely be able to drool. So my story should have been about the daughter born to Wade and Barbara Lorman who had a lot of scars and was very silent. But God had a plot twist. And not only did I learn to talk, but I was talking at the age I was supposed to be without speech therapy. And surgery after surgery just left ugly red scars on my chin and my neck. And I had this huge scar that would run for years just under my chin to my sternum. And it was as thick as baby in my finger. And in my book, there are pictures. The book is a children's book, but I did put real pictures in the back. So from the time I was about 14 to 18, doctors tried performing skin grafts to my neck in an effort to take away that large scar. And none of those grafts were successful, which means that grafted skin would die and turn a dark brown. And so without being another religion or being born in 2020 where you do get to wear a mask, or pretending that it's Halloween year round, there was nothing I could do to hide the scars that were just so very apparent. And also, I grew up in a very chaotic minister's home. My parents were my pastors, and they fought constantly, and my dad was probably bipolar or something close to it, and he would get angry for no reason at all, and he would start lashing out, first with words and then with whatever he could find, whether it was a belt, an extension cord, whatever, and if he couldn't find anything, he would just use his fist. And we never knew what mood Dad would be in when he walked into the room. And I equated all that with ministry, so I vowed that I would never marry a preacher and I would never be a pastor's wife. So, of course, there was a plot twist there. I did marry a preacher, and as Keisha said, we have been pastoring for over 25 years, and the majority of the time I like it. And we were also very poor. So people in our community would drop off bags of clothes. And I remember those big trash bags being dropped off at our house. It was like Christmas for us. And I remember digging through those bags in search of something to wear to school. And when I found something that halfway fit, I would just put it on unironed and go to school. So as you can imagine, it was very easy to be made fun of and to be stared at. And most people felt sorry for me, and I hated that. And at night, I would beg God to make me normal, to change my identity. But every morning, I got up and looked in the mirror at the same messed up face. And so then I started praying, okay, God, if you're not going to change my looks, then surely I'm adopted, and my real family is very wealthy, and they're going to find me. And I promised myself I would not live this way the rest of my life. And as I got older, I learned how to iron and also put together some decent outfits. And then girls in my class would talk about dating and the boys that they liked and who liked them, and they would always insinuate that I would never know how that felt. But for all this next generation group, there was a plot twist. Not only did I begin dating, but sometimes I would have 4 to 5 dates on a weekend with 4 to 5 different boys. And my husband's here, and he can attest to that. And another plot twist, I was voted best dressed my senior year. And if you look at the graphic, the picture on the left was my senior picture. I have no idea what happened that morning. It's obvious I didn't brush my hair. I didn't buy the picture. I had to get my husband to go in the school library and take that picture because I was so embarrassed. I didn't buy the yearbook. I didn't buy anything. But that person in that picture might as well have been a totally different person than the one on the right, because it was a whole different mindset. I was definitely miserable that day. And I didn't know how I was going to get to be the person on the right, but I started a long time ago with that as my vision. The first time I heard the word handicapped was used to describe me was when I applied to go to college. And I hated the word. I never used it verbally until actually recently, but it resonated mentally with me over and over. But I was told that since I was considered handicapped, that the state would pay for my college. So to all you who paid taxes in the 80s, you bought a bachelor's degree in accounting for me. Thank you. Thank you. And when I started college in Lake Charles, my parents, most of my doctors were from New Orleans to Austin, but I've had over 30 surgeries. So most of my doctors in my teenage years were in Lafayette, but when I started college in Lake Charles, I had to find a new plastic surgeon. And that first visit, I mean, he just took such interest, and he was like, we're going to work on this. We're going to give you back some self-esteem. And one of the things he suggested for that prominent scar was radiation. But that was before tanning beds, where you could just get the radiation a little bit cheaper. But he suggested radiation right on that scar, but he had to tell me that radiation causes infertility. Well, what he didn't know, I was 18, and I had been the babysitter for my family, and on my 18th birthday, I asked for a hysterectomy because I was done. And so I could sign my own release then, so I signed it quickly, and I was never expected to have children. But God likes plot twists, and he didn't just give me one child, he gave me two. And that second child is that 2% that you can get pregnant on birth control. And I love her. I don't know what we'd do without her. But you see, when God gets involved, there is one thing that you can expect, and that is the unexpected. And if you read through stories in the Bible, you will see that an axe head swam, lame men leaped, lepers were cleansed, and more than one funeral was turned into a celebration. And my story, which is definitely not over, could have been so different than it was, but God just added plot twist after plot twist that just changed my life. And he can do that for you. What's your story? What events in your life make a positive outcome unexpected? Have you been hurt too much and your story right now ends with, I'll never love anyone again? Or has the devil written a chapter in your book that says, you've gone too far, there's no way that God can use you anymore? I'm here to tell you that you have a plot twist coming. If you are breathing, there's a plot twist coming your way. You see, Satan would like for us to believe that whatever battle we're going through is going to be the end of us, that we're not expected to succeed. But I've got news for him. He might have a plot for us, but God has a plan that's going to twist the devil's plot. His word says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. His word says, when the wicked, even my enemies and my foes come upon me, there's going to be a plot twist. They're going to be the ones that stumble and fall. And I'm reminded of a story in the 5th chapter of John, starting at verse 2. It says, now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. And in these porches lay a great multitude of impotent folk, blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water, because when the water moved, whoever was first to get in that water was made whole of whatever disease he had. And so Jesus walks up to the scene with the people all laying around, and he goes up to one man who had been laying there for 38 years. And he says, do you want to be made well? That was such a dumb question. I mean, his first name was Lame. And he's laying at a place of people who are waiting for a healing. So it was a dumb question. But maybe Jesus was appalled that that man had done nothing to improve his condition in 38 years. And I thought, 38 years, it's easy to see how crazy that sounds when you're talking about somebody else. But as I read this story, my story's not much different from his. When I was 7 years old, my dad moved us from Austin, Texas to Jennings and became the pastor of the church that we now pastor. And our congregation consisted of our family of 6 and one other dear saint who was the secretary and the piano player. And I remember at 7 years old being in church, and we would each sit on a different pew to make our church seem fuller. And that summer, Dad took us to camp meeting in Tioga. And to me, it was the most it still is, the most amazing place in Louisiana. It's my favorite place to visit. And I remember sitting as a child in that huge auditorium and seeing that platform, like our little platform at our church, you took one little step and you were on the platform. But up there, you had to walk up steps. And at 7 years old, it was just the ultimate to be on that platform. And a little while later, my sisters and I were playing church. How many of you ever did that as kids? You played church, and if you had a dominant sister, she was the preacher, the singer, she took up the offering. All you could be was the sinner on the pew. But that day, maybe she let me talk, but I don't know, because I remember I told her, I was telling my sisters, one day I'm going to be on that platform. And my dad overheard us, and I didn't realize the insecurity issues he had at that time, but he said, you have to be born on that platform to get on it. And I found out quickly that what he meant was, you have to have the right last name to be on that platform. So I thought, well, obviously I don't have the right last name, so maybe I can marry somebody who has the right last name. So I did a little checking, and I found out that in our organization, the two main names, or our best respected names in Louisiana, are Tenney and Mangan. So I checked out the family. Neither one had sons my age. So I had an identity crisis. And I just had to resign myself that I would never have the right last name. I would never have the right identity. But the desire to speak and to share my testimony was a dream that God put in me at an early age. And it was close to 38 years after making that decision that God spoke to me, and he said, do you really want to be used? Are you going to live the rest of your life being comfortable with the limitations of your handicap? And I was standing on the platform that day. It was the Sunday before Mother's Day, and that day I said, okay, today I'm putting aside my excuses and I'm going to do what I feel like God called me to do. So I walked across the platform to where Clifton was, and I said, next Sunday I'm going to speak for Mother's Day. You can just go up there and announce that now. And he looked at me like I had lost my mind, and I really thought I had lost my mind. Because Mother's Day is one of the largest attended services at our church. I'm not sure why. I think people choose that over Easter because Easter is definitely, we party for Easter. We don't go to church. But Mother's Day is one of the largest, and I had just volunteered to speak. And it wasn't like I wasn't involved in church. I did sing. I was part of the worship team. I taught Sunday school. I taught Bible studies. I organized events. I am the best cleaner at the church. Thank God somebody has relieved me of that ministry. But I did work. I was involved. And I was comfortable in those roles that I created for myself. But I was not fulfilling the dream that God gave me. And so Cliff made that announcement. And for the next 6 days, I prayed and I fasted and I labored and I did not cook supper. And I worked so hard to produce a whole 20-minute sermon. And when I was done, I felt like I had given birth on the platform. I was sweated down from head to toe. But for years, I sounded like that man at the pool of Bethesda. And let's go back to that story for a minute. When Jesus asked him if he wanted to be made well, the man said, sir, I don't have a man that's going to put me in the pool when the water's stirred up. But while I'm trying to get there, somebody always beats me to it. And I borrowed this from my husband, but blame is spelled be lame. And if you constantly blame other people or circumstances for your condition, you handicap yourself. It's your job. And every time God dealt with me about my calling, I reminded him about my handicaps. I don't have the right last name. And if you don't notice, God, I don't look like everybody else. But up until that Mother's Day, I had done nothing to change my condition. Are you like that man or me at the pool? Have you become so accustomed to your way of life that you're comfortable with the limitations that you have? Are you sure you're ready for a plot twist? Are you sure you're ready for an identity change? What is it that you've been talking about for years that you've never started? What could God be saying to you through this story? And so then in verse 8, Jesus says, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made whole. He didn't have to go to physical therapy. It says immediately he was made whole and he took up his bed and walked. So Jesus told that man, you get up, you pick up, and you walk. And so I'm rewriting the Bible. So in Paula's version, it's you get up, you pick up your excuses, and you start doing what God called you to do. And so from that Mother's Day forward, I began to pray more. I started working on my self-esteem. I started reading motivational books, which are just reworded principles from the Word of God. And I volunteered to speak more, and I needed an audience, so I volunteered to teach Search for Truth at a nursing home because I just needed that audience, and they were captive. I even wheeled some of them in, like, you're going to sit here and watch me flip this chart. I was terrible. But if you can preach to a group of people falling asleep in their wheelchair, I can preach to you guys. Y'all are easy. But when I started being intentional about changing my condition, it wasn't long before I realized that my handicap wasn't here. My handicap was up here. And God had a plot twist that he was creating. The year after I quit making excuses and started stepping up and stepping out, Sister Tinny, who I affectionately refer to as Mama Tinny now, called me. And it was 2 days before my 45th birthday. And she asked if I would be willing to drive her to a conference. Brother Tinny was supposed to drive her, but he had a funeral that he had to officiate at, so he had to cancel. And I'm just like, what? This is not even a request. This is, duh. I told my family, you cancel any plans that you've made. I don't know if they had a party plan. Usually I'm the planner, but they probably didn't. But I was like, whatever you've planned, we do go out and eat and stuff. I said, just cancel it because God has given me the best birthday gift. 2 days with Thetis Pearl Tinny. And so when we got to the conference, they handed Sister Tinny her name tag, and they offered to make me one, but I saw Brother Tinny's, and I was like, oh, no, I'm here as Brother Tinny. And I wore the name tag that said T.F. Tinny. I had a parking spot. I had a front row seat. And a few months later, that same church called me on a Thursday afternoon, and they said, we would like you to speak at our sectional women's conference tomorrow night. Our speaker just had to cancel, and the committee met, and we've decided you are a good replacement for her. So on that Friday night, I stepped on a platform in a room packed with women to hear Mickey Mangan. What a plot twist. If you don't have the right name, if you don't have the right identity, he will give you the right name until you make a name for yourself. Last October, I spoke at a women's conference in Lake Charles, and there were only 3 speakers. It was Thetis Tinny, Mickey Mangan, and Paula Lajeune. And I've stopped counting how many times I've gotten on that platform in Tioga, because God loves plot twist. And I don't share my story so that people will feel sorry for me. Actually, it's another spiritual gift. I do that good by myself. I share it so that you will stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop waiting on somebody else to fix your situation. You are the problem and you are the solution. And God has a plan for you. You get up. You pick up your talent and you do something with it. But you don't just lay there. I've heard it said that people change for two reasons: inspiration or desperation. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather change for inspiration. Stop waiting for someone else to change your future. You change, and that change will change your future. And there are so many other stories I could tell you, but I do have a limited time, and I'm aware of that. But as I did look at the crowd before the lights were right here, I saw women who probably need a plot twist in your life. You see, I can focus on every flaw and inadequacy that I have, all my handicaps, my weaknesses, all the reasons that I should just throw up my hands and quit. But that's not His plan for us. His plan is not just for us to survive, but to thrive. And you will only thrive when you step into the ministry that God planned for you. And it's not your pastor's job to figure that out. That's your job. And if you'll stand with me, I'm really almost done. I'm good. I like visuals. I'm a list person. I like checking off lists. But right now, I want you to think of whatever you've been using to not fulfill God's calling in your life. What is your handicap? And I want you to pretend that you're holding your handicap. Once you figure out what it is, whatever's been stopping you from doing whatever it is you're supposed to do. And now that you recognize what that is, I'm hoping I'll give you a new way to look at it. When I was completing this message, God reminded me of Paul's words in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 7 through 10. And because I like the wording of it, I'm going to use the Message version. And in it, Paul says, I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Satan's angel did his best to get me down. What he did, in fact, was push me to my knees. No danger of walking around high and mighty. At first, I really didn't think of it as a gift. And I begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that, and then He told me, my grace is all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. And once I heard that, I was just glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength moving in on my weakness. Now I take my limitations in stride, and with good cheer, those limitations that cut me down to size, the scars, the abuse, the bad relationships, the opposition. Some of you have lost a child, the terminal illness, the bad breaks in life. You fill in that blank. I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, there's a plot twist, the stronger I become. And I've come with a message for someone today. Your best days aren't behind you. Your story's not over. Your perception about your identity is going to change this weekend. There's a plot twist around your corner. That thing in your life that you've been using as an excuse, it's no longer a handicap, it's a gift. And God wants to use that part. He wants to use that gift to affect your life and someone else's life. God knew exactly what he was doing when he made you. He says he knew you when he formed you in your mother's womb, so he did put you in the right family. And here's the plot twist. God didn't need another Thetis Cheney or a Mickey Mannion. He needed a Paula Lajeune. And when I stopped focusing on who I wasn't and began to accept who I was, he was able to use that name. So I want you to make up your mind today. Today's the starting point of a new identity. Today, I'm going to start taking steps to fulfill the dreams and the goals that God has put in me. Today and every day after, I'm going to be anticipating a plot twist. And I am done, but if you would like prayer, if you would like to come up and you're holding your old identity or your handicap in your hands and you want to give it to God, I'm asking you, if you don't have to, you can come right now. There are people here that will pray for you. But I hope I've changed someone's life today